Architects, when they design a building, are concerned with an object, and they are concerned with the use of that object and the client who's paying for it. When you're designing a master plan, it's very different. You're looking at the spaces between the buildings, by which I mean the streets, the squares, the parks, and not just the spaces, but you're looking at the use of those spaces. There's no point having empty spaces, and there are plenty of examples of master plans that haven't worked. I think the way it is composed in terms of shops and markets and good places to be, to walk with trees, play areas and so on, the spaces between the buildings is what makes the master plan. And the only way to really successfully inhabit those spaces between the buildings is to work with local community and work at each stage, because it will grow over time. Think about a master plan, unlike a building, it will be inhabited by those long after you've finished master planning. And so how people take it up, how they respond to it, it's interactive. So over 10, 20, and indeed, even when it's completely built out in, say, 20 years' time, it will change in 40, 50 years' time. These are my sketches of the first thoughts about the organisation and structure of the master plan based upon the historic geometry. So I've taken the waterfront, the strand as I call it, and the timber jetty, which has this east-west geometry. And then there are the docks and the slipways that then have a rectilinear geometry at right angles to the river. And that sets up the organisation of the urban quarter. And I then look at where the gates are, and I organise coming in from the gates so that it respects and orders itself around that urban geometry. And then I looked at the existing building, the Olympia building, which sits in the heart, and I look at how that can make the heart of the scheme. Put a square around it, put all the main streets to focus around it. And then I looked at all the edge conditions, the Evelyn Quarter, where the gardens used to be, where the park is at the moment, how that can link into the square. And we call that the Evelyn Quarter. And on the west edge and the east edge are other very strong but different characteristics. On the west edge was the Mass Pond as an existing park. And on the east edge is the existing houses that sit along there on the edge and the slipway and park beyond it. And when you layer all those together, you get the geometry. And so I work with the team at how to express that, because communication of ideas is a critical piece of master planning. And when I explain all those ideas and the thinking behind it, then we get feedback. Then we change it. Then we listen, and then we have other ideas. And that's how the master plan geometry is evolved. Covent Garden is a wonderful example of a good master plan for a fruit and vegetable market. That's now another kind of thing, simply because it was really well thought out in the first place. The high streets are always very successful places to start. Marylebone High Street is held out as a very successful high street. But I think Deptford High Street has a lot of potential, because high streets are not just about shops. They're about where the buses stop, where the pubs are, the cinemas. It's where people come to meet. It's where the railway stations are. So I think that reinforcing the high streets is a very good way to placemake in our time. I think what makes Deptford different to a lot of the big regeneration areas like Earl's Court, Nine Elms, Paddington Basin and King's Cross is that all these are more central, much more urban in that they are close to the centre of London and therefore more mixed, invariably more dense and so on. I think what we have at Deptford is a much more distinctive urban village, because it's just to one side and also it's right on the banks of the Thames. I think it's all the others don't actually have the Thames right on their doorstep. And what's the most interesting thing for me about this Convoys site is that it is a site that was hidden from the people of Deptford for decades, indeed centuries. They may go there to work, but they leave when the whistle goes and work's over and it goes dark. It becomes empty, becomes a private zone. Now we're turning it completely on its head. And I think that's going to make it a particularly exciting opportunity compared with all the others, because it will take charge of, it will own the riverfront.